What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Thermo Diet Podcast. My name's Christopher Walker, and I am here with... damn it, I forgot your name. I forgot what we decided.
Research animal?
Research animal, not the party animal, the research animal, Jayton Miller. So we are going to talk to you today. Just we thought it'd be cool because at the time of recording, we're coming up on the new year right now. So just talking about some goals. What are our goals? And maybe I'll give you guys some ideas for your own goals. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important to set goals. You know, there's a lot of different camps in terms of philosophies on like goal setting stuff, but I'm kind of convinced like if you're not clear on what you want in general, you're never going to get what you want because you don't even know what you want. So a goal is something good. You know, sometimes people say they're bad. It's bad to goal set and all that. Just go with the flow or whatever. But I'm more of the opinion that we create our own experience in the world. We are the observers that are creating things. Mm-hmm. So it's helpful to have clarity, to be able to get to clarity. And so we can probably talk about clarity too, because I think that's an important part of goal setting. Yeah.
So what's your perspective on waiting for the new year to set your goals?
I mean, it's more of just like a temporal thing. Like, well, end of the year, start of a new one. Time in general is it's kind of fake almost. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter when you set your goals, just as long as you get clear on them and do them. The new year happens to be just a time where culturally, like, people start to refocus, and I think people naturally like work in cycles. Everything I think works in cycles. So you have this yearly cycle, and a lot of times by the end of the year, people are just tired and they probably missed the mark on a lot of their goals, and they're wanting to refocus on stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's a good time to do it. In general, it can be very helpful to motivate yourself. Like, all right, getting through the end of the year, I'm going to restart on a good foot next year. But you really don't need to wait. It's kind of like what everyone does with dieting too. Like, I'll start Monday. Mm-hmm. Yep. If you look at like more of a micro cycle for the year, it's almost like the holidays are like the weekend. Mm-hmm. And then you eat too much, you kind of quote fall off the wagon, most people say, and then they start up again in the new year. Mm-hmm. It is more helpful to just be consistent in general.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you gain clarity on your goals?
Probably a good way to do it is actually to look back at what your goals were earlier. It could be last week, it could be last year, earlier this year, whatever, and look at the ones that you didn't achieve and try to figure out why you didn't achieve it. It's not necessarily bad that you didn't achieve it, because a lot of times, especially people that are growth oriented people, which tend to be people that are setting goals, right? You evolve quite a bit over a year. Mm-hmm. And stuff that you care about at one point, you stop caring about, and you realize that it's really not that important. So your goals shift, and that's totally fine. I mean, I think people get a bit too rigid with things. And so it's more about like finding the fundamentals about why you want something, and, at your current maturity level, and then going after that. But if your maturity level changes and you feel like it's a positive change and those goals kind of aren't important anymore, then that's totally cool.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So we had a conversation the other day about getting very specific about our goals. So what are some of the ways that you specify your goals?
Dates and numbers. In terms of gaining clarity, it's a lot of it's kind of almost the law of attraction thing, or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, the more clear you are with very detailed specifics about what you want, you tend to just start to gravitate toward it. And it might take years to get it, but I've had it happen a bunch of times in my life where I just became really fixated on something, and then it's almost like a lot of times you just forget it, but you're fixated on it in such detail, and then you forget it, and then a couple years later it's like, holy shit, I have it, or
Mm-hmm.
it happened or whatever. And you don't even realize that, but I think the mechanics of it is like you start to set your mind in motion toward that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more specific it is, the better, because you have like real clarity on it. And it becomes just a subconscious momentum toward it, because you know what you want.
Yeah.
And then it might take years, but it eventually happens. And I mean, one thing that's a good one, especially with people that listen to this podcast, is just like visualization of if you have like a physique goal, or even outside of just your physique, but like, how do you want to feel with that? So let's take that with health. Let's say someone has like 50 pounds to lose,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have a clear concept visually in your head about like how you want your body to look, it can drive like how you're going to train. You can say, I want bigger shoulders and tighter waist. And so you're going to naturally want to be like emphasizing shoulder training and upper chest and traps and that sort of thing. And you start really working on that, because that's the only way you're ever going to get bigger shoulders, if you actually train your shoulders so they can grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then smaller waist, you start naturally like gravitating toward it if you're using the diet in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But then how are you going to feel about it? Are you going to feel like waking up every single morning and, it's, I got to go to the gym again because I'm achieving this through working out, like overtraining and eating too little. I have no energy. Kind of like what you were talking about in another episode of like, you lost a lot of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and then you did it in a way where you just like destroyed your thyroid function,
Big time.
and you had no motivation to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people focus on like shallow stuff without really thinking through with clarity about how they want the whole experience to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you make the whole experience in your mind, like it becomes way more visceral and real, and that's clarity. That it's not just like I want to look like this movie star or something. It's more like, I want my body to look really good like that, these types of proportions. So I'm going to train in that way, but I also just want to feel really great every day. Like I want to wake up with more energy. I want to feel motivated. I want it to feel completely effortless to achieve that and maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel, productive in in my job, in my career. I want it to enhance like this full life experience. So if you can like create an emotional experience for yourself in your mind of like fully what you want, that is so much easier to make real.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not really like missing anything
Right.
if you think about it enough. It's also, you were talking about the other day of like one thing that helped you a lot was meditating and being like mindfully focusing on like certain areas of your body and thinking through everything and like visualizing it all.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good practice. I mean, that's like an ancient practice. People have been doing that for a really long time. And in this case, for goal setting and clarity, gaining clarity, you can do the exact same thing with like your whole life. Like you can say, what do I want my day to look like every day? What do I want to feel like every day? How much work do I want to do every day? Yeah. How productive do I want to be? What do I want to work toward in my career? What do I want to, like, how is my exercise or my diet like enhancing and as a part of this whole puzzle? Like, how do I feel all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to sleep really well? Whatever,
Mm-hmm.
That is how to get clarity. But it's like trying to figure out every single variable you could possibly think of and meditating on it, or like having it constantly building in your mind, because you can't typically do it all at once because you don't know what you don't know. But as we evolve, like we see access into these other areas of our life,
Mm-hmm.
on an emotional, mental, physical level. And then you start to, getting clarity becomes way easier the more aware you are of everything.
Right. And one of the things that you said one time that really stuck out with me was, once you visualize all of the habits that person is doing,
Mm-hmm.
the end person that you want to become, if you just instill those habits and begin those now, then it's just a matter of time before you collapse into being that person.
Yep. It's that's an important part of the whole clarity thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that people miss, because you could visualize the whole emotional experience, your physical experience, what you look like, whatever. But now the rubber always has to meet the road. And that's probably the whole thing with like The Secret and everything that I think people completely misunderstood, where they're like, I just got to like visualize things and then they'll happen for me. I'll visualize, $100 million in my bank account and it's just going to be there. And it's like, well, 20 years goes by and it's like, still no, there's no $100 million in my bank. Well, I wonder why, right? So now you have to look at, like, let's say let's just use that example, $100 million in your bank. It's going to be a momentous effort to get that. And so you have to, now you can go and you can be like, that's what I want in life, at that point, right? And then the way to do it is to go find people who have $100 million in their bank account and study them. And whether that's meeting them in person or reading books written by them or about them or whatever, whoever, and it doesn't have to be money, but it's just like whoever has your goal, who has achieved it, study the heck out of that person and everyone that you can find that is similar, who's also achieved the goal. Look at the habits, because those rituals that you do on a daily basis, like those things are actually where the rubber's meeting the road, and that's what's walking you toward that. So you start to also increase the clarity over time. Like I think that's probably a pitfall of goal setting with people, is that they think like, I need to set this goal like before January 1st. And then I have to like stick to it and that's it. And if I fail, I feel bad about myself, and that's what but you have to look at it more of an evolution, because it is an awareness game. And say you're studying somebody who has the health that you want, like they have a great physique that you want for yourself. They have a lot of energy, mental clarity, good sleep, good sex life, whatever, all these elements that you might want. Find out everything that habitually that person's doing, and start acting that way yourself. Because when you fully visualize that and like how to let the rubber meet the road and do it on a daily basis, you can step into and become that person like now. You don't have to wait till January 1st. You don't have to wait till next year. You don't have to, because again, it's like the journey itself is in the evolution, and in your own mind is what's going to get you there. And that's really the reward in and of itself. Because even when you get where you think right now, like where you want to be, and you get there and you're like, okay, well, I feel good. Great. What's next? I got to keep improving. I'm not going to like stop. Right. But then if it's all habits that got you there, then it's second nature. Like you don't know anything else now. Right. That's who you are.
How do you, prioritize the different types of goals that you have? So, how do you prioritize a physical goal over like an intellectual goal or a spiritual goal or a business goal or things like that?
I think the first step is getting the full clarity on like your whole life, because you can't isolate those things in a vacuum. A lot of people try to, and then that's where you run into problems. I've seen a bunch of times people get so fixated on a physique goal that it destroys the rest of their life. And they can't focus at work, and they either lose their job, or like they can't be very productive in their daily life. Their relationships go way out of balance because they're being like a food Nazi or something, and it's hard to be around someone like that. And I've seen that a lot with bodybuilder friends, where like they achieve like amazing physiques, and I'm just kind of like, well, and you can literally see like their life start to deteriorate around them as they're doing their show prep for like 6 months or whatever. They break up with their girlfriend. They have all these problems, like emotional issues. Their business starts failing. So it's more about like finding that full scope of what you want in your life, and then the priorities are naturally there, where you could say like, okay, I have this circle here. You could draw it in a notebook, like, all right, I got my health goal, my mental goal or intellectual goal, my spiritual goal, my business goal, and like, all right, how do I want to structure my daily life around like doing a couple habits that's going to get me to that? And that you kind of reverse engineer it, and then is this compatible? Like, are these all compatible at the same time? do I have enough bandwidth to do all this at once? And I've seen like different, reputable, successful people like say, and I think there's even like behavioral research around this sort of thing where you can really only focus on like a couple at a time and be excellent at it and really get there. Like 2 or 3. So some people think more is better, but you're setting yourself up for failure if you have like this giant ass list of stuff. So if you pick 2 or 3 things that you're really going to focus on now, and you can prioritize them based on your own desire, right? Hey, I'm really overweight. Like I have a lot of health problems. I don't feel good on a daily basis. I'm not sleeping well. Health is probably going to be your priority. It should be. You should focus on that because it's going to leverage wise, always think in leverage, like that one thing is probably going to impact everything else positively in your life.
Right.
So look for the leverage. Same with business. I'm always trying to look for like, what are these actions that I can take? Because say you have 5 minutes. Can I take this action or this action in the 5 minutes? Which one's going to get you the best result in the same period of time?
Yeah. So what are some of your goals that you're focused on right now going into the new year?
So for 2020, I mean, it's mostly about growing Umzu as a business and Thermo as a philosophy in my mind. Like, I mean, my whole life is this. So, and I established a while back that I want like my training and nutrition and everything with Thermo. Like, I want that to be like a autopilot in my life,
right?
Where it's just what I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to hit the gym like 3 times a week, no matter what, or 2 times a week or whatever, but I'm going to have like a simple pattern that I can still work a lot on the business and then have this like maintenance pattern where I'm slowly, making progress, slowly getting leaner, stronger, etc. But it's on autopilot. It's like a program in your mind, like a software program that's just running. So you don't have to think about it anymore. If you like take those things and put certain things at the subconscious level, like that's my software baseline, my program, and it's going to keep me healthy. It's going to keep me feeling good and able to focus at work and able to execute at work. And then, but it's not going to like take too much of my time up. I'm not going to go and start and like do a bodybuilding show. That would just be, that's not my priority. Right.
Right.
So then the business goals being, how can we take this awesome team we have and continue to just be better every single day at what we do and become a world-class organization, world-class products, world-class customer acquisition, running the business itself very healthy, which I'm always learning new stuff about that. So I've got a few focuses like on this entire year for Umzu is all about increasing the health of the business itself. Like as a functional financial unit, business entity, it's going to be extremely healthy. And then on the team, and the culture here, continuing to improve and make it so it's like we have just an awesome high energy environment where everyone's excited to come to work and everyone's working on important things.
Yeah, we definitely don't have that right now. Some of these people that are in here.
So those are like really important as just broad goals for me. So now it's got to be this evolution of awareness in my mind for those goals, like always paying attention, learning more about how to make that happen properly, and finding people, mentors, reading books about it, whatever, like to just find small tweaks. So like every day, every week, every month, year, it's getting better. Those are my main goals. So the health goals are kind of on autopilot, which is a beautiful thing about Thermo, because like once you're doing it habitually, you're just like, well, great. Yeah. And there was a testimonial in the Thermo group today, Steve, where he's saying like he's got that momentum, that clarity now, and like he knows, and he's manifesting that all the results now. And once you start to do that with Thermo and the lifestyle and the diet and everything, it becomes like that software program, which we call it the Thermo effortless zone, where it is just like what you do now.
Yeah,
it's how you eat.
So do you find that you have to instill a routine for that? Do you have like a go-to routine that you do for that?
My routine's pretty simple. I'm like I like flexibility. I like a bit of chaos too, because I think all the opportunities in the chaos. So there's certain areas of my life I don't like to be very rigid. But most of my routine itself is just like, I'm gonna hit the gym in the morning. I wake up early, go to bed early, hit the gym in the morning or sometimes in the afternoons, and then get to work early and be at the office, do certain stuff,
So you've been working out before you come into work in the mornings?
Yeah, this morning I worked out.
Daggum, I gotta step up my game.
Yeah, dude.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not optimal to work out in the morning hormonally, but like for lifestyle reasons, I want to be able to like be energetic when I get here and then feel awake. So I have caffeine before I work out and then go train. And they're not long sessions whatsoever. Usually I'm in and out in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But just focus on like key things that I want to work on. Then you feel better when you get to the office, and then I can be present at the office all day and not tired by the time I finally do get to the gym in the afternoon. So I could be tired and go home and eat a big Thermo bowl and, watch The Office and go to bed. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So to answer your question, like my routine is pretty simple so I can maintain the flexibility there. It's not so rigid. I think people fixate on rigid routines and you feel like you failed if you don't do it every single day, or you go on it for like 2 weeks and then you fall off. So set yourself up for, which I mean, for some people, they're just like hard driving. Like I gotta be so structured and like every day is mapped to the minute, but it doesn't work for me. So some people it does.
Yeah. I find myself to be kind of routine based. I do like a little bit of flexibility in there, but for the most part, like once I fall into a routine, it's just like, I don't have to think about anything. So I really like that. What are some of the areas of goals that you think about?
My primary really is business. We have an awesome company here. Let's make it bigger. Let's reach more people. That's literally like my main focus, right? And then again, it's how many things can I just program into my routine or rituals that just help me maintain my other stuff that's really important, like my health. Having a couple key relationships, but not too many. That's another thing that I think people, I don't mind cutting people out if they're not serving, to helping me reach my goals. Like that's another important part of this is like relationships in your life can steer you away easily.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Got to cut the fat. Yep.
Just simplify everything. I mean, being simple is like, it's one of the hardest things to do in your life.
But it's extremely effective.
Yeah. And it's rewarding when you do. So yeah, what about you? What are you thinking about for this year, goal-wise?
Oh man. So, Umzu's towards the top of the list, definitely. I think that we can do some really cool things here, and I really want to get the Thermo word out to as many people as possible. Because I truly think that it's the most effective way to sustainably take care of yourself, long term. And I think that the impact that it has on the psychological level is very important. As far as like personal, I want to read anywhere from 25 to 50 books this year, just like as an intellectual goal. Just because I love to learn and I don't feel like I'm learning enough. So I want to kind of elevate that even further.
There's always more to learn.
Definitely. And it's like the more that I learn, the more that I know that I don't know a lot.
It's one of the...
I don't know anything.
It's one of life's mysteries. The more you know, the less you know.
Exactly. Yes.
Which is, it's cool. It's fun. It like fosters a exploratory energy in your life where you're always trying to like figure something else out and solve problems and so forth.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wrestle with these ideas and break old notions that you had or assumptions that might not have been true. I like that because it could be like on certain things with certain books, like can be disturbing almost to shatter your worldview, but I think it's extremely healthy to read all sorts of stuff like that to challenge like the way you think, because then it solidifies over time, which it's an evolution. Like over time you start to really solidify like really what you think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And like I feel like every time that you learn something new in that way, you gain a different window into the way that you view the world. You know, so you get to get a new perspective and gain a larger awareness of the world that's around you, which I think enhances the experience itself, you know. So I think that's really interesting. But yeah, other than that, those are my two main ones. I got some arbitrary physical goals that are just vain as far as like strength goals and stuff like that, but I'll get there.
Cool.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
One thing I do want to do this year too is start painting again. Yeah, I'm probably doing an art show in Venice this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. I started writing and I've really enjoyed that so far. So I think I might continue to do that and continue to develop my copywriting skills.
Yep.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yep.
I'm learning more about that aspect too.
Writing's a lot of fun because it helps you. Like a lot of people try to avoid writing all the time, and they think it's like a chore. But if you embrace it, it's like when you write your ideas, and it could be something as simple as just writing a paragraph about like your thoughts, but you can start to structure thoughts more efficiently. Because language itself is like it's extremely powerful, and people don't give it enough thought. And it's almost this key between you and between your mind and the world. And like if you can start to structure thinking and communicate it with increasing effectiveness, you can use that to get what you want in the world. And it goes back again to clarity too, of like you could read a sentence where you're like, I don't know what that said. And then you could read another sentence, and it could be, it could be an entire book, and you're like, I don't know what was the point of me reading this book. And there's a lot of people that write stuff like that. It's just like nebulous and not clear and rambling, and nothing important is said. But then you could also read like a great writer who took 20 years of thinking on something and wrote one sentence, and the one sentence is like, fuck.
Yeah.
That, that's awesome.
Just shakes you down to the core.
Yeah. Well, and then, Shakespeare wrote, brevity is the soul of wit. And if you have that sort of thinking, I'd like that quote because it's clear. It's like because the wit, it's so loaded too. Because wit implies like wisdom, and the wisdom is only ever earned or learned from someone else who earned it. But you can truly, I guess, only ever really learn wisdom like by the experience on a like a full level. But the wit itself is like the quick wisdom, like the ability to access it, I think. And then brevity being obviously like the ability to communicate it fast and in a short segment or short thought that like can pack a punch. And so that's where writing can be extremely powerful if you can practice it and refine it over time. It's a really beneficial skill.
Yeah,
it's one of the key skills I think could make anybody as successful as they want to be.
Yeah, definitely. I found, and I think one thing that a lot of people steer away from it for is because, we have such this negative connotation with it because of school, because we were forced to do it and do it in a way that wasn't really creative or productive in like an abstract sense, And so I think just sitting down, and if you're thinking about something, just writing, and just let the pen float. You don't even have to use punctuation or capital letters. Like just go and just let the page, fill itself. And I found that that's helped me, come to a lot of different conclusions and think of ways in a couple different perspectives that I haven't been able to before, and it's been a really good tool.
It's a good therapy to do that sort of like free-form stream of consciousness writing. I've been doing that for years, where if I have you get to those points all the time, like where there's so many thoughts just like bouncing around your head, and you're just overwhelmed. You're like, I got to think through this. And it's easy to think when you're actually like writing it out. And then if you do that stream of consciousness and it just no rules, like you said, just say exactly what you're thinking, just type it out. And it could take, in 20 minutes, you feel so much better. And you're like, oh, I always find that I start those, like I'll open like a text document on the computer and just start doing that and just like writing. And then by the end of it, I solved the problem completely. And you just feel really good. I'm like, oh, okay. Because you just allow yourself to like just shit out all this nonsense in your head. And then eventually you're like, okay, here's the solution here.
Now, do you notice that typing is more effective for yourself or actually handwriting is an effective tool?
Typing for me, because I can type faster than I can write. And I don't, like I use a notebook all the time for keeping track of stuff, but I don't like actively write like large amounts with a pen. So my hand isn't even kind of, back in school, you could just like write for days. My hand can't even handle it anymore. So and it can't keep up with my brain.
Yeah. I find that a lot too. Is like my brain's about 10 words ahead of my hand. So
yeah, I think that sort of stream of consciousness stuff is a lot more effective if it's being typed, if you can type quickly, because you can keep up with it.
Yeah. I also find that something that's interesting is like dictation. So like, you can just talk into your phone and it kind of writes down everything that you were thinking, and just kind of talking yourself through it.
Yeah.
I've done that a few times and it's been pretty effective as well.
Yeah.
But you got anything else for goals?
Well, what do you think? Let's say the Thermo Diet Facebook group, like what do you think would be the most common goal in that group?
So some of the goals that I think that are going to be most effective or most common in the Thermo group are probably being comfortable with going out. And
like going out to eat?
Yeah, going out to eat. And then communicating Thermo effectively, because I feel like that's one thing that some of them struggle with.
So, all right, going out to eat, I mean, the basic recommendation that we have for that has always been, having a good vitamin E supplement, potentially also choline, but
activated charcoal is also
activated charcoal. But also, like when you're out to eat, like it's not a binary situation. Like you don't have to be like, I'm going out to eat, I'm just gonna like fucking eat a pile of donuts or something. You can find Thermo things or get as close as possible to certain stuff. I mean, a lot of restaurants will have some options. I mean, even something like getting some oysters somewhere, or enjoying like smaller plates if you can find, roasted tubers or a side of potatoes. You can always ask the chef to cook it in butter. It's really easy. I do it all the time. There's just simple things like that. And a lot of restaurants will accommodate it unless you're in a place where, I don't know, like you're eating at Chili's or something. There probably don't even have butter at Chili's. I don't know. But
it's margarine.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're in like a town and you're eating out at a small place or whatever, it's easy to just be like, hey, can you cook my potatoes in butter? You can also it's all in your own power. Like you can actively search out places that have Thermo options.
Yeah. And I like the fact that we can look at it on a spectrum. Like it doesn't have to be exactly Thermo, but if you can get it as close to Thermo as you can get, like, you can go out and get steak and potatoes, and the potato might not be organic. The steak might not be grass fed, but it's close,
Yeah.
And it's better than getting something that's, fried, in PUFAs, and then mashed potatoes that probably have a bunch of PUFAs in them and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's more of a lifestyle thing and building momentum toward your goal, right?
Yeah.
Because the momentum is really the point. It's like, it's addicting, and it becomes like your program, your subconscious thing. And it's like, this is what I do. If I am going out to eat, I'll pick an option that is the best option that I can. And I won't, and the cool thing about Thermo is you don't really feel like you're, with the food options themselves, you don't feel like you're restricting yourself. It's not like old diets that I'd tried in the past where you're like, oh man, all my friends are eating burgers and I'm sitting here eating this salad,
Yeah.
You're like, damn it, I'm on this diet, I got to do this thing. But it's more like you can eat like good, fun options. And just, keep it at 80-20 rule. Like,
Yeah.
go for the leverage.
And I feel like the psychological stress is a lot more detrimental than the one meal that you're going to be out with people, you know?
Yeah.
I think just relaxing about it and enjoying the time that you're spending with the people that you're with is going to be as beneficial as, you know, if that meal was 100% Thermo in a lot of cases too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Well, if that's a goal for people, like be able to have a more balanced existence, I guess, then hopefully those are some helpful tips. And in terms of communicating Thermo with your friends, what would you say if you said like the elevator pitch? I saw somebody put, you know, something in there of like, how would you structure an elevator pitch for Thermo?
I would say, so basically Thermo is the alleviation of blockers and the addition of activators that allow for energy to be produced in the body most effectively. And we do this by providing the body with glucose, which is the most preferred source of energy within the human body, and avoiding things that are going to block the energy flow through the body. So things like vegetables, polyunsaturated fats, and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I think in the simplest way to say is like, you know, I eat fruits, roots, and meat.
Yeah.
And starch, you know. That's like probably the couple words, you know, easy. But people asking why, you know, what, and that's a good explanation of that. But it's also just like I eat in a way that balances my hormones. That's an easy way to talk about it. I like to focus on foods that are easy to digest and taste good.
And nutrient rich.
Nutrient rich, yeah. There's like simple ways to explain it to people. But ultimately it comes down to like, what are you gonna, how do you think about it? And like, how are you gonna commit to communicating it? And it doesn't have to be an awkward scenario. A lot of the times people, when they're asking you like why you eat a certain way, they're either just genuinely curious, or if you're very confident in it, they don't have an opportunity to like be negative about it really. Yeah. You're just like, this is what I do. Like, I feel great. Yeah. I'm sleeping better. That's another way to explain. I sleep better. My sex life is better. I have more energy, and my physique is improving. Like, and so I'm eating this way and it's working. Yeah. And people are going to be like, whoa, that sounds great. Let me try that.
And 9 times out of 10, those people are questioning what they're doing anyways.
Yeah. I mean, most people do. Because with nutrition, it's not clear. It's so confusing to the general population. And because there's so many different voices like telling people different things. So if you're just confident in what you're doing and it's working for you, just do it and stick with it and just be confident when you explain it. This is what I do. I feel great. More energy. I've lost a bunch of weight. I sleep better. It's so easy to maintain, and the foods are all delicious. So, I mean, I don't know who would be like not interested in that sort of thing. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But okay. Well, hopefully you guys got some good nuggets of some ideas for how you can gain clarity in your own life and set your own goals and set goals in a way that you thoroughly think through the goal as you're doing it, from an emotional, mental, physical, and habitual level. Like, how do you envision yourself? And maybe you want to set a 1-year goal for 2020. You're like, okay, fully visualize who you want to be, and then learn as much about who that person, like what that requires of you to become. Get extreme clarity on that, down to the habits, everything, down to the thought patterns. Like, does that person that I want to be think negatively about X, Y, and Z situations, or do they think positively about it? Those types of things. Get really clear on that and just step into it. Yeah. Just start doing it. And you literally will, like, the second you start acting that way, you are that person. You just kind of have to walk it out and just do it. Yeah.
I would even add environmental into that too. You know, staying out of negative environments and putting yourself in a place that's going to allow you to be successful.
Find every level of your experience. Like, look at every variable you can possibly think of. And what you'll find is that even by doing that exercise, there's no way you can possibly think of every variable involved.
Mm-hmm.
There are like a finite amount of variables, but the finite amount is massive. So it's hard for the human brain to really like process that much. So also just remembering that it's all about like a personal evolution toward that goal. And your goals might evolve with it, and hopefully they do. And it's all about building momentum. But once you start like thinking that way, then it becomes fun. It becomes a learning experience. It becomes and it feels like a personal evolution as you're doing it. And you're growing and you're becoming a better person, better version of who you can be. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful information for people. These are our goals that we talked about today. Hopefully you're thinking through what you want to do and how you want to be better. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it. We're on all sorts of apps and whatever, YouTube. And if you're not in the Thermo Diet Facebook group yet, go check it out. Just look for it.
Definitely. And if you have any questions, make sure to go to thermodiet.com.
Yep. If you need supplements, go to umzu.com.
Yeah.
The best supplement company on earth. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Have a good one.